I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to name this video, but it will be something along the lines of the best high school teacher I ever had, the teacher that I most respected in my life, something along those lines. So, just to do a quick introduction of who this guy is, while I was still in high school, in my grade 12 year, I took calculus in my second semester, and he was a math teacher. I never knew him, I've seen him before. This was my first class with him, and to this day, I'll probably say he was the best teacher. In terms of the best teacher, I don't mean that, he was the nicest, kindest teacher, but I feel like if there was a class that I learned the most from, or that I was able to apply the most knowledge from, it would probably be him. And I would say that his teaching and just how he taught the students in the class was probably the best. And I would genuinely say I have the most respect for him because he was unique. And I'm going to get into it. So, from what I heard, most people told me this guy is really good, and they told me he was scary. And I had no idea what to expect because I never had him. I saw him a couple of times. He just looked like every other regular teacher. He was a Asian tall man with glasses, maybe in his 40s, let's say, always showed up to work early, just the standard, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. And I finally got the chance to have him in that calculus class. And my first impressions, I was excited. I'm not gonna lie. He really did excite me. And the reason was he was a very strict teacher. He had rules. He let us know what those rules were. And he made sure to be the teacher that you feared. And obviously, I know that his older students probably did not fear him because he did have a soft spot, kind of, for the students that he had like three classes with by this point. But the thing is, what I learned throughout the course was even those students, when they were messing around or they were doing what they weren't supposed to do, he didn't shy away from being strict to them and showing them or like putting them to their place, which is one of the main reasons I had so much respect for him because he wasn't a pushover or anything. He treated every student the same. Obviously, you could say that some students he preferred just because, I mean, it was like their third class with him at this point. It was my first class. And I never really talked to him one on one as well. So there's no friendship or relationship made, right? But basically, he was very strict. And what I mean by that is he told us straight up that this is what we're doing every single day. We had a whole schedule of what we're supposed to do. He told us, okay, this is the homework you're supposed to do. If you don't do it, that's your fault. Boo hoo. We're moving on to this the next day. Here's our tests. We knew literally by the first day when our tests were, and he said pop up quizzes can happen whenever during the chapters because we had like 9 chapters or something, and they're like divided to like certain parts, if I remember correctly. But basically, a chapter would take about a week or so of content of like a week of school, maybe a week and a half, and around in between we would have a pop quiz. No one ever knew when it would happen. Obviously, it wouldn't happen the first day of the unit, and it wouldn't happen on the test day. Usually, did happen literally the day before the test, or not. What I mean, not. I don't mean that the day before the test, because the tests usually consisted of a few units. We had like three main units, but there's like three chapters in each unit, if that makes sense. As I said, 9 chapters. So the test was in the end, but what I mean is we'd start here, and then here was the last day where we had these assignments for each chapter. They're called chapter challenges. And we'd get a day to go to class and just work on those chapter challenges. And usually what happened was on those days, which were like review days, would have the quiz, unless it was given to us earlier. But what I liked about him was, you know how a lot of teachers, they tell you do the homework, it'll help, yada yada, but they don't make you do the homework. And I'm not saying this guy made you do the homework, but what made his class so unique to me was he literally told us all of the pop quizzes that we'll have, the questions on those pop quizzes come strictly from the homework. And he wasn't lying. Like they were word for word, bar for bar. And I never had that before. I remember the class that I struggled the most with in high school was probably my grade 11 math class, just because it was a complete different concept. It was functions. It was like introduction to functions. And then grade 12, I did advanced functions and then calculus. But functions was difficult to me. The teacher also was just the hardest teacher in my school. But although I did do homework, I was very picky with the homework that I did. I'll decide to do this question, that question, this question, and then I'm done with it after an hour or so. But with this teacher, I literally did all of the homework. I've never done that in any of my classes. I'm not kidding. If I was assigned this homework, I'd finish it all. If I couldn't finish it that day, the next day when I have more assigned homework, I'll complete the homework from yesterday and then start with the new homework. And it got to the point where I was able to have certain hyper focus like stages where I could literally complete the homework in under an hour, which to some people might not seem impressive or might seem normal, but don't forget, many people can probably relate. Even when you're doing homework, most of the time you're not fully focused on it. You might have your phone right next to you, you might have your laptop right there. I mean, what I was doing was I was doing my work on paper and then I'm looking at the questions on my laptop, and then every few minutes I'm checking something. I'm texting my friends on Instagram, or I'm checking YouTube, seeing a little video, right? So that's why I mean that I couldn't complete in an efficient 1 hour the homework. But I had stages where I could, which happened later on, which actually taught me a lot more about myself and my work ethic. And I truly believe his class showed me that if I put my mind to it, I can really be very consistent and I can truly dedicate something, because I achieved an A+ in that class. So I did work my ass off. Not like everyone got an A+. The average was, I think, like an A minus. Like it was still a good average. Like my class was smart. But the point is, he literally first day, and as the class continued, he did put fear into us. He wasn't shy away. He wasn't shy from swearing. He did swear at us a few times. He had a I don't want to say aggressive tone of voice, but when he had to, you know, make something clear, he did raise his voice. You did have fear of him. Obviously, if you had his class before, you kind of knew that he's just like not messing about, but like you knew that it wasn't as bad as it seemed. But I never had him before, so I took it literally. Like I took it the most serious that I could. So I did everything that I could in that class to do the best that I could on those pop quizzes. And the thing is, which I actually found funny, usually the tests were like questions that he made originally, but there was sometimes situations where those questions were literally word for word from the homework as well, which was amazing for me because I did all the homework. And it's not like I just did the homework, I actually solved the questions, if that makes sense. There's a difference with doing all the homework just to get the answer and like actually solving the issues, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But I think another thing that really made me enjoy his class was maybe the content itself. Like I really think calculus is one of the most interesting like math subjects there is. I was never a big fan of trigonometry, really anything with shapes. I was never a fan of, especially like pi, radius, all that stuff. I never was too much of a fan of that. I like algebra a lot, but calculus by far is one of my favorites. Derivatives was like such a new concept to me. And obviously at first it was hard, but it's just like I really enjoyed derivatives. And integrals, we didn't get too much into it, but it was pretty unique as well. My first year of university, I had a calculus, like a more of an advanced business calculus course where we delved much more into integrals, and I aced that class, A plus. And it was because of this teacher. I even thought of emailing him, but I just thought that it'd be a bit weird just because I never really talked to him. But he was amazing. He taught me so much, and he made me literally love math more than I already knew that I did. Because I was always like, I'd say okay at math, and I liked math. It was definitely one of my favorite subjects throughout school. But he was probably the reason that made me like truly understand that, yeah, I love math. I always will. Math is so fascinating to me. And I think the best thing about math is when you're doing such a long problem, you solve it and you get the question right. It's like a dopamine rush. You get like a dopamine rush. Like, yes, I got it right. Let me do another question. It's like addicting, genuinely. And like, genuinely, I'm grateful. Like, he was an amazing teacher. We had so much fun in that class. One thing that made it amazing was just I had a lot of good friends around me that sat next to me. So that was nice. I do remember one time where I did get really scared of him, where essentially we were doing a quiz, I believe. I don't think it was a test. And I forgot my eraser, or I just didn't have an eraser. So I used my friend's eraser. He was sitting right he was sitting to my left. So I would literally just reach like this, take the eraser, and he noticed that, and he just told me like, if you were in university I would have failed you. Like, he basically pressed me. And obviously I got a little shook, but I needed that type of stuff because his intent wasn't to scare me, it was just to show me reality. Like, it's true. Like, I was unprepared. I should have had an eraser. I could have asked for a eraser from him. He gave me an eraser. He ended up giving me an eraser, gave it back to him. But the point was, he taught me a lesson. It's like, you should never be unprepared for anything. You should always have everything that you need. Because in university, to be fair, if I did do something like that, I could get in big trouble. Especially if, imagine doing like a midterm or a final. Like, you can't get away with stuff like that. To be fair though, I kind of did do that in university just because our midterms usually were literally side by side. So if I was sitting next to a friend, it wouldn't be a problem to take the eraser because we just shared it. Same with like a sharpener. But I still understood what he meant because in high school, in that class, our desks weren't side by side. I literally had to reach to get his eraser. So it was a little different. I think that was the only time he really like pressed me. I do remember another time during class. I think it was right before class like started. We were already in class, and I was talking to my friend, and we're just laughing, and he just told us to lower our voices. And he said like who's laughing, yada yada. But nothing too crazy. Also, the thing that made him that the thing that really made me respect him was the fact that I knew that he was showing off this type of like character, I guess, or personality. But I knew deep down, he really did care for us, and he was very kind. Because during lunch, I never did it, but during lunch, he was always in his class, and people would always go there, ask him questions about math homework, and he'd help them. He'd take his time. He could be writing an email. He could be doing something important. If he was in that class, he's always helping students that came to him without judging them, without calling them stupid. He did his best. And I even remember one time we had a test on a certain date, and this never happens to me because I was a very I don't know what the word is, but I always showed up to school. Like, I was never absent. But there was a day where I had like two appointments back to back, and I couldn't make it, and it was literally during one of our tests. So I emailed them like before, obviously, and I told him like I'm not gonna be able to make it, yada yada. And he was very sweet. He told me, let the office know, but thank you for emailing me. He was just very polite and kind about it. And I did the test literally the day after or something, and there was no problem. Like, he didn't scream at me. He didn't call me stupid. Like, his emails, like if you saw his emails and then how he was in class, you'd think it's like a completely different person. He was very polite, and I knew that was his real like uh character. Oh yeah, I remember what I was gonna say. Also, just how you saw him outside of class, he was also very kind, like up to other teachers and stuff. Like I understood he was kind of putting up a character, but I do appreciate that he did that because, as I said earlier in the video, there was a few students that had him before that obviously he had a soft spot for. But if they were ever like we when we had those review days, if they were ever like just talking to their friends and stuff, like he'd tell them like go get back to work. And if they continue doing that, he even shouted at them. Like I remember he raised their voice at them, a few times if they did it. And that was nice knowing that he wasn't like picking on certain students. Like he had the same energy towards everyone. If you were talking during class, he'd point it out and it'd be embarrassing. Like it really was. I do remember another scenario where this was kind of embarrassing to say, but to be fair, I was at the beginning kind of scared to even ask to go to the bathroom. Like I remember I was holding it in during the class and I just couldn't continue. So I just had to ask. And he did get a bit upset because we're literally in the middle of a really important lesson, but he let me go. And obviously he never rejected anyone going to the bathroom, but you did have to ask politely. You had to say, may I go to the bathroom? You can't just say, can I go to the bathroom? And he just wanted respect from his students and he showed respect back. Like the whole semester, I was a quiet kid. Obviously, I talked with my friends and stuff, but during class, I never showed any sorts of disrespect. I was just there. He always knew that I was looking at him, showing interest in the lesson, taking notes. I did everything that I had to. So there was never a reason for him to treat me poorly. And I even remember at the end of our exam, I told him, like, thank you so much. You were an amazing teacher. And yeah, like I really respected him. He was amazing. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to say, but I kind of forgot. Oh yeah, another thing I really liked about him is those chapter challenges I was talking about. It was like assignments, right? But the thing that really made me like his class was those chapter challenges essentially made you apply specific like chapter concepts into real life. Like he was a big fan of like F1 and like racing and stuff and cars. So a lot of the assignments that we did were like based off real life scenarios. So we were applying the concept that we learned in class to real life problems, which is an amazing thing to do. You're like using problem solving skills and stuff. And also, I think he knew this, but like everyone would like share the answers and collaborate with others, which to some extent is actually very smart because it makes you, as I said, collaborate with others. If I think of this idea, I tell my friend, he can come up with his opinions and we can solve the problems together. It's like leadership and like communication skills. So he was very smart, and that was like our final like our summative as well, where we ended up going to like a university to like do this like racing event and stuff. It was awesome. Like he was really an amazing teacher. I have so much respect for him. And although obviously like when I had to pee and I was scared of him to that extent, it wasn't the most pleasant. It still taught me a lot because usually with teachers you do have respect for them. You don't treat them poorly, but you know how most people treat like substitutes and stuff. But with him, when you entered his class, you knew there was no more messing around, no more talking, nothing. You're just doing what you have to do. You're taking notes, yada yada, taking quizzes, doing tests, and then you move past it. It was very professional, which I really liked. And I remember what I was gonna say. Another thing that I found really interesting about him was whenever we did a lecture, like every day when we did a new topic or we learned about something, his rule was that you had to take notes because if you didn't take notes, he wouldn't like share like the slideshows or PowerPoints that he was showing us in class. So if you didn't take notes, you wouldn't be able to go back to what you learned. And obviously you could ask someone in class, but he never made exceptions. The only exceptions was like, I mean, I guess if you were sick or something and it was like really bad, but even I mean, I guess those scenarios, but like he was very strict on that. which I actually think was an amazing rule because it meant that you can't just, not come to class, half ass it, and then just expect him to, give you his notes whenever, and then you study when you need to. You have to show up to class every day. And you know how high school students get. They usually skip, especially if it's a class they don't really like, or they know that, like, as I said, those review days, not like we were really doing like any new lectures on those days, but you get the point. Like, people, skip if they could, but with him, if you skip, you're just making it worse for yourself, which I think is just how he taught was just amazing, genuinely. Like, as I said, I'm probably just repeating myself over and over, but the fact that those pop quizzes were literally based off homework questions is like genius. Because obviously, some people could be like, "Oh, if I know the concept, well, I don't like. Who cares if I did the homework or not?" Like, yeah, you're right. But some people, especially if they need more uh, practice, doing those practice problems is amazing because you're just doing like like not hundreds, but like a lot of practice problems, and then when you get to the quiz, it's possible you literally remember that question. So it's like you complete this quick. Like, I remember some of my quizzes, I was like done in like 5 minutes. Like, it was just like quick. Like, I was sometimes the first person to finish tests, quizzes, and it made me feel good. It's like a sense of pride. But also, what I mean by that is, like, as I said, some people might try to like do more problems so they can remember those problems when it comes to a quiz. But also, what happens when you're doing that is you're putting so much more practice into solving the problems, which just overall helps you be able to be better at solving the problems, if that makes sense. So I think he was like genuinely a genius. I'm not gonna lie, he was an amazing teacher. I wish more high school teachers were like him. Not glad to some extent. I'm glad they weren't, because it would have been a different thing, like a different video, if because in high school we had 4 classes. So if my 3 other classes made me put that much time commitment as I was putting into his, I would be a beast. I'm not gonna lie. It would be hard at first, but I would be having those like 1 hour like um full focus sessions a lot more, and I'll probably be a complete different person. But at the end of the day, I want to conclude it now. He was an amazing teacher. I hope I was able to, uh, explain why I think that. And I hope if you have any similar experiences with other teachers, you can let me know in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. And before I finish it off, he was great because he did win many awards. I remember once I searched him up just because I was curious. I wanted to learn more about him. He had won like the state teacher like awards, stuff like that. So he was definitely awarded for his success, and it's not like I'm just speaking nonsense. Everyone that had him can probably say the same about him, especially if they didn't drop his class. Because we had a few people that, they were there the first day, they thought he was weird and yada yada yada, and they just dropped the class, they left, they gave up. And I wasn't one of those people. And most people that stayed in his class, did the work, can say the same thing that I can say. So, yeah, he was great. Peace.